Hey guys, DMS here. Today I have for you another IEM roundup. It's been a long time, and this one we're going to do a little bit differently, so let's check it out. Now do me a favor, if you want to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. If you want to support the channel and ask me questions directly, you can on the Telegram chat, or you can get active in the community on Hi-Fi Guides. Alright, this is something I'm calling the IEM ladder, and this one on the end isn't actually in the video, but I wanted to point out that this is the new Sennheiser IE100, and I have a video coming on it soon, so if you want to see that, you should definitely stay subscribed because they're very interesting. But I got these 5 right here, and I'm calling this the IEM ladder, and that is because these are organized right now on the table by price. Now this is all in US pricing, but this is the IE300. It's $299. This is the Dunu Zen, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's $699. This is the Kinera Nana at $899, the C Audio Neo at $1,099, and the Unique Melody Mest at $1,399. And at the end of this video, these are not going to be in the same order. At the end of this video, these are going to change around. We're going to rank them best to worst in my own personal subjective opinion. And it doesn't exactly align with price, which is interesting. So let's talk about these IEMs a little bit one by one and compare them. So this has a single driver. The IE300 has a single dynamic per ear. It's a 7mm XWB driver, which Sennheiser say stands for extra wide band. The Sennheiser's party trick is extreme comfort. The Zen here also has a single driver, but it is a magnesium driver. It's basically just a dynamic driver with a metallic coating on it. The Zen here's neat little trick is that you can actually remove the end connection on it, and you can put on different connectors. It's just a little end piece. It comes with 3 different ones, and you can very easily pop on a different end connector. So the Nana's party trick is that it has 1 dynamic, 2 balanced armatures, and 2 electrostatic drivers per ear. And those 2 electrostatic drivers are what make this thing sound pretty interesting. The C Audio Neo is a very interesting one. We'll talk about that in sound, but this has 10 balanced armatures, and like I said, this one is $1,099. And of course, I've already made a video about the Unique Melody Mest. It is an excellent IEM, all things considered. It has 1 dynamic, 4 balanced armatures, 2 electrostatic drivers, and 1 bone conduction driver in each ear. So there is a lot going on in this thing. It's definitely the largest one on the table. Let's start with sonic characteristics down here on the Sennheiser. Let's talk about this little IE300. This is a V-shaped sound signature, so the bass and the treble both elevate. It is not what I would describe as particularly neutral in that case. And with that V shape, it is on the warm leaning end of it. So we're talking about a boost in the bass that goes down into the mid-range, a little bit of a dip somewhere in the mids, and then another kind of peak somewhere up in the treble. Not a particularly harsh V shape though. I will say that it's pretty pleasing, but the bass can sometimes overwhelm other sonic elements. This is by far the most comfortable IEM on this table, and interestingly enough, it also has the best directional imaging out of every IEM on this table. So hearing exactly where sounds are coming from is very, very easy to discern on this IEM. Now with this IEM's V-shaped sound, it can get harsh at high volumes. I don't listen to this thing super loud. I would say I would listen at still moderate levels and I'm fine, but if you're the kind of person who likes to absolutely crank your IEMs, this does get a bit harsh at super high volumes, so it depends on what kind of listener you are. For the volumes that I do, I think that this is perfectly fine. Now the Zen is probably my least favorite IEM on this table. This is super shouty. It's probably the best built IEM up here, which is a shame. I love that there's this detachable termination on the end of the cable. I don't like MMCX, and actually the IE300 uses MMCX too. I think MMCX shouldn't be used anymore, honestly. It's kind of a dumb connector, but it is what it is. This is very shouty. It's shouty in the sense that it's like a Grado mixed with an ultrasone mixed with a Nighthawk. The bass has a bit of a bump somewhere in it to where certain bass notes can be very powerful, but the rest of the time it just sounds like there's a 100 hertz-ish sort of bump in there that muddies it up a little bit, but it's not very prominent. The timbre is very, very, very unbalanced. So nothing really sounds natural. Vocals don't really sound natural. And I would say that this is a very, very shouty sounding IEM. I tried this with a vast variety of different tips, and in some cases I would see improvements, but all it would really do is shift the shoutiness around to different frequency bands. I wouldn't describe it as sibilant, but definitely as shouty, but I could get that band to shift up into sibilance very easily. So Zen, not great. Canera Nana. This thing is butter. Once again, this one is $899. I'm using it with these tips that are kind of like low profile tires you would see on a car. They're very, very thin, and they just kind of fit around the nozzle on this like a rubber band. So you get the actual tip of the IEM very close to the end of the rubber tip here. Like I said, it's like a rubber band tire, a low profile tire. It's still pretty comfortable though. This only needs a little bit of padding because the nozzle size isn't huge. This is probably the second most comfortable IEM on this table, next to the IE300. Now, as I mentioned, this has one dynamic, one balanced armature, and two electrostatic drivers. It's very pretty. It's got a nice finish on it. The electrostatic drivers in the Canera Nana give it buttery smooth highs. It has an overall warm leaning tone, but nowhere near as warm or bassy as the IE300. It's just a slight warm leaning with very, very smooth, relaxed, but present treble and a lot of air on top. The bass is very extended. It's very fun. You can definitely hear some deep sub bass, but it's not overkill. It never seems to muddy anything up and never seems to push up into or bloom into any parts of the mid-range, which is great. The mid-range texture is fantastic, and this one is superb for vocal clarity and presence. This is definitely the best in terms of vocal clarity and presence on this table, and certainly the most smooth tuning. Now moving up, these two are very interesting. Let's go to the C Audio Neo. This is kind of like a DT880 in its tuning, but with a bit of a dip somewhere, and it's a little bit less bright. This is, however, the most deep sounding IEM on the table. And it's interesting when I say deep, it's not like very wide sound staging. It's deep as in forward. It's like a hall in front of you. And I've never quite heard an IEM like that, because it still feels like you have some limited space on the side, but most of the audio is going forward, very much like a stage performing in a narrow hall. This can also make vocals be a bit distant, but they're still clear and easy to understand. The tonality of this is a little bit thin, and it's a very interesting sound, as I said. I'm not quite sure, I couldn't really bring myself to preferentially like it, but it's not objectively bad. I think there's plenty of people who would like this IEM, and I don't have anything massive to fault on it, but it's not to my personal preferences. However, at its price point, I have heard worse things, and this is not a bad IEM at its price. The 10 balanced armatures do give it plenty of detail, so it is a very detailed IEM. It's just a very specific sort of staging and a very specific sort of sound you have to be after if you're looking for this. Then we have the Mest. One dynamic, 4 balanced armatures, 2 electrostats, and 1 bone conduction driver. If you've seen my video on the Mest, you know that if you're using it with the Comply tips, I like it a lot. However, I didn't like it with any other sets of tips. I feel like the Comply tips give it the most balanced sound, and I would say it's one of the most neutral IEMs on this table. Actually, it probably is the most neutral IEM on this table, with these tips anyway. It definitely has the best balance of sonic characteristics between all of these, and it's really hard to fault the sound of the Mest, though it is a bit large, and rather than the C Audio Neo, it doesn't have a lot of forward depth, but it does have a lot of horizontal width. So you get really interesting soundstage out of this, where vocals can come out of your head in the very center, but instruments can still sound as if they are to the left and right of you. A lot of people would call this a 3D sound staging IEM, and I would agree with that. I would say that the Mest is absolutely worth its money. But how do all of these line up? Well, this one is definitely the most comfortable still. The IE300 is the most comfortable thing on this table, and probably honestly the best for gaming and movies in my opinion, simply because that bit of a V-shaped tone to it is exciting for games and movies. The directional imaging is by far the best out of this entire lineup, and really if I'm watching a movie on the go or gaming, I want something comfortable. And that very easily puts the IE300 as the best for gaming or for movies. The Canera Nana is a great value. I would say that it is still the smoothest sounding thing on this table, definitely the most pleasing, and I gravitate more towards this than anything else here for music. Even with how great the Mest is, I can't deny that the Mest outperforms it in many technicalities, but I find myself enjoying music a lot more on the Canera Nana. The Zen, I think we all know where that one's gonna go. And the C-Audio Neo with its interesting traits is good, but not to my preferences, and I don't think that I would use this very often. So here's how I'm gonna order these. I'm gonna move these all up for a second. And let's make a new line down here. I'll put my number 1 over here on the right, and my number 5, the lowest, over here on the left. So the one on the right is going to be my best. And I think that the best here is, truthfully, the Canera Nana. That's my number 1 out of this roundup. And for pure usability, because you have to think an IEM is something that I use on the go. I don't use them very often. If I'm sitting home at a desk, I'm gonna be using full-size headphones. And on the go, I am listening to music probably at low volumes, watching a movie, maybe playing a game on my phone. And in those cases, the IE300 is my number 2. Third behind that, I'm going to put the Unique Melody Mest. It is sonically the best on this table as far as technicalities are concerned. It's the highest performer, but as I said, I just find the Nana to be so much more enjoyable. The Mest is a bit large, and that holds me back from wanting to take it on the go. If you're a hardcore IEM enthusiast and you're using something like this at home, or you really are doing some intense analytical listening to details on the go, sure, the Unique Melody Mest is probably your number 1, but I just can't put the Nana in any spot other than 1. It's just so good. At $8.99, that's considerably cheaper than the Mest. Okay, C-Audio Neo, that is definitely going right here. It's great, but it's not for me. It might be for some of you. And definitely in last place is the Zen, which is, like I said, unfortunate because I love the way it's built. I love the cable. I think I tried another one that they made that had a beryllium driver in it at CanJam, and I think I enjoyed that, but this definitely isn't it, I'm sorry. Anyway, tell me how you guys feel about this order. Is there anything on the table that you want to see a full review of and go into more detail? Because I would be happy to do full reviews on all of these IEMs if you guys want to know more about them. I'm really tempted to talk more about the Canera Nana and the IE300, but you know, the C-Audio could be interesting too. Like I said, I have a review coming on the Sennheiser IE100 Pro, and that's that. So what do you think, guys? Did I order them right? Am I crazy? I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, and I think that's gonna wrap this one up. So guys, if you liked this video, please leave a like down below, a comment letting me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can at forum.hifiguides.com. And as always, don't forget to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Until the next one, guys. Peace.